بول روبسون مغني أوبرا، ممثل ولاعب كرة قدم. في فيلم بول روبسون المغني الأوبري والممثل والناشط الحقوقي الأمريكي الذي كان اسمه الكامل بول ليروي روبسون، ولد في 9 فبراير 1909 وتوفي في 23 يناير 1979. تعددت مواهب بول روبسون، كان مغني أوبرا وممثل، كان يلعب كرة قدم وكان بطل كرة قدم في فريق جامعة إلينوي. لم يكتفي بول روبسون بالتمثيل فقط أو الغناء، بل كان ناشطا سياسيا شرسا وقف ضد العنصرية في أمريكا والتمييز في إفريقيا وجنوب آسيا. اتحط على القوائم السوداء في الخمسينات بسبب مواقفه السياسية، وتمسح من كتب التاريخ تقريبا. In the year 1940, Paul Robeson met African-American writer Langston Hughes. Both men would go on to become friends and civil rights activists together. Over the next decade, Paul Robeson became more and more interested in social issues, especially concerning the mistreatment of black people around the world. In 1947, Paul Robeson began to make regular donations to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP. This was an organization that fought against racism and discrimination of black Americans. During this time, Paul Robeson traveled all over the United States performing for audiences both black and white. His performances were not only entertaining but also thought-provoking, as he often used his platform to speak out against injustice. In 1950, Paul Robeson's life changed dramatically when he was called to testify before a grand jury in Washington, D.C. The grand jury was investigating alleged communist activities, and Paul Robeson was asked questions about his political beliefs and his donations to civil rights organizations. Paul Robeson refused to answer some of the questions, and this led to his indictment on 2 counts of contempt of Congress. On March 1950, Paul Robeson was found guilty of contempt of Congress and sentenced to 18 months in prison. In April 1950, President Harry S. Truman ordered the Bureau of Investigation, later known as the FBI, to conduct a full investigation into the case of Paul Robeson. The Bureau's mission was to determine whether Mr. Robeson had engaged in any unlawful behavior and to assess the impact of his activities on national security. The investigation revealed that Mr. Robeson had not engaged in any illegal activities, and his political beliefs did not pose a threat to national security. However, the investigation also uncovered evidence of Mr. Robeson's membership in the Communist Party USA and his extensive contacts with individuals suspected of communist sympathies. Despite the Bureau's findings, President Truman decided not to intervene in Mr. Robeson's case. Instead, he allowed the Justice Department to prosecute Mr. Robeson on the contempt of Congress charges. On September 28, 1950, Mr. Robeson was found guilty by a jury and sentenced to 18 months imprisonment. He was also fined $1,000. Mr. Robeson appealed the verdict, but his appeal was denied by the U.S. Supreme Court. Mr. Robeson served his sentence at the Federal Reformatory for Prisoners in Danbury, Connecticut. While in prison, he continued his fight for civil rights and became a leading figure in the burgeoning civil rights movement. Upon his release from prison in 1952, Mr. Robeson was immediately placed under surveillance by the FBI as part of its efforts to monitor individuals suspected of communist ties. The Bureau's surveillance of Mr. Robeson included wiretapping his telephone conversations, monitoring his mail, and following him whenever he left his home. Despite the government's attempts to silence him, Paul Robeson continued to speak out against racial injustice and discrimination. After his release from prison, Paul Robeson's career took off in new directions. He appeared in several successful films, including The Quiet One, The King and Four Queens, and The Wager. He also starred in the Broadway production of A Raisin in the Sun, which was based on Lorraine Hansberry's play of the same name. In addition to his acting work, Paul Robeson continued to be an active civil rights activist and traveled extensively to speak out against racial discrimination. He was a key figure in the Montgomery bus boycott and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and played a major role in organizing the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. During this time, Paul Robeson became close friends with Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders such as James Baldwin and Bayard Rustin. Together, they worked tirelessly to advance the cause of racial equality in America. Throughout his life, Paul Robeson remained committed to using his talents and influence to fight for social justice and equality. Even after suffering a debilitating stroke in 1969, he continued to be a vocal advocate for civil rights until his death on January 23, 1976. Paul Robeson's legacy continues to inspire people around the world to fight against racism and discrimination and to strive for a better future. Now let us delve deeper into some of the most significant instances where Paul Robeson fearlessly stood up against racial injustice. One such event was Paul Robeson's performance of the Star-Spangled Banner at Yankee Stadium in New York City in 1946. At the time, baseball was segregated and black players were barred from the major leagues. When Paul Robeson was asked to sing the national anthem before a game between the New York Yankees and the Cleveland Indians, he saw it as an opportunity to make a statement. He delivered a powerful rendition of the song, which included lyrics that celebrated the contributions of African Americans to the United States. This bold move was met with mixed reactions, but it served as an important reminder of the struggles and achievements of Black Americans during a time when they were still fighting for equal rights and recognition. Another instance where Paul Robeson demonstrated his commitment to racial equality was during his participation in the Journey of Understanding tour in 1950. Organized by civil rights activist Bayard Rustin, the tour aimed to promote racial harmony and understanding by bringing together black and white entertainers for a series of concerts across the United States. Despite facing opposition and even violence in some cities, Paul Robeson and the other performers persevered, using their talent to challenge racial barriers and stereotypes. Their courage and dedication helped to pave the way for future generations of black artists and activists. However, it was Paul Robeson's unwavering support for the African continent that truly set him apart as a champion of racial equality. He was one of the first black actors to gain international recognition, and he used his platform to speak out against the injustices faced by Africans and people of color around the world. Paul Robeson was particularly drawn to the struggle against colonialism and apartheid, and he actively supported movements seeking to end these forms of oppression. He also used his talent and charisma to raise awareness and funds for various African liberation movements and organizations working to improve the lives of people living under colonial rule. One of Paul Robeson's most famous acts of support for Africa was his participation in the All Africa People's Conference held in Manchester, UK in 1958. The conference was a historic event that brought together delegates from across the continent to discuss strategies for ending colonialism and achieving independence. Paul Robeson was invited to speak at the conference, and he used the opportunity to call for international solidarity and support for the African liberation movements. His passionate speech and unwavering commitment to the cause made him a hero to many Africans and people of color around the world. Despite facing opposition and even threats from the US government, Paul Robeson continued to speak out against racial injustice and discrimination throughout his life. His legacy as a trailblazer and champion of civil rights remains an inspiration to us all today. Paul Robeson was a true pioneer who broke down barriers and challenged the status quo. He used his talent, charisma, and unwavering determination to fight for a more just and equitable world. His life and work continue to inspire us to stand up for what we believe in and to strive for a better future for all. I hope you enjoyed learning about Paul Robeson, a true legend who used his platform to make a positive impact on the world. If you want to know more about Paul Robeson, I have provided more information in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.